This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Here we go, Mikey, back for another episode. Welcome to the Tapped In episode. I'm Bud. We're here with Mikey.
What's going on?
Mikey, you got a gnat problem going on?
I wouldn't call it so much as a gnat problem as just, I have some gnats floating around in here. My wife got this plant tree behind me. It's called a money tree. It doesn't produce any money, which I'm kind of pissed off about, but it does produce gnats. I guess there's gnats that are living in the soil. So when I'm here in the office working, I get a little gnat flying around. You know, it brings me back to my can crushing days, and I'm on Zoom calls all day, just knocking gnats out of the air.
Then we need to get you in a plastic. So for those of you beer distributors that don't love or don't live in one of the amazing states that have a bottle return law, you don't know what a can crusher is or don't have a care in the world about what the can crusher is, but it collects gnats. So you're gonna get you in a plastic bag, shoot your arms out the side. You got your little home makeshift little what do they call those things, Mikey? Ponchos. There we go.
Yeah, poncho, man.
Makeshift poncho for your can crushing days.
Yeah, we used to go through a can of Raid about every hour just to be able to breathe and not breathe in gnats in the summertime.
What a mess. So this week, we had a good week. Cruised through some stuff. We weren't on the road again. Crazy, right?
Yeah, it felt good to be home, connect with some clients, and dig into some stuff.
You know it. We got some good stuff working. A couple good clients. See them on how they're digesting their new implementation, and the team is changing their minds. It's fun. We'll see how many of these people we can get on a future episode, eh?
Yeah, sounds great.
But today, this one's maybe a little bit more geared at maybe an ASM, a team lead, or a rep specifically. Kind of thinking through how you break down $100 in GP and start to in gross profit and start to process what I like to call return on effort. Where boxes are not all created equally, that boxes have different velocities and different profitabilities. And how do you start to think through, okay, I could sell 100 cases of this or 20 cases of that or 10 cases of this, and how we need to rationalize the complexity of the portfolio that sits behind the scenes. So, Mikey, have you worked with any reps around this concept on site or at Atlas and when we were running our wholesaler together?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a couple things come to the top of mind with Beatbox and Sazerac products. We had the malt version. We didn't have the actual liquor, but a couple of items that are slow on the velocity side, but highly profitable to where you would normally not have the focus, probably not pay a whole lot of mind to something as slow and helping it out and getting it going. But yeah, when you sell and you turn a case, the profitability is huge. So turning one case is equal to turning 10, 12 cases of something else.
Yeah, for sure. So, and the way that we see this kind of expanding out and working more and more and more is like, I like to tell the story of a car dealer. You walk as a salesperson on a car dealer, and the reason why when you walk on a lot that car dealer sales reps traditionally, like, they come see you, they flock to you, they want to pay attention to you, is because they're attentive as a salesperson. That's one thing, but they also know that the likelihood of you purchasing a vehicle if you walk off the lot dramatically goes down. They want, if you've gone through the effort to walk onto their lot, especially like unannounced or unplanned, you got an opportunity there to actually close a deal. But as beer reps or as beverage reps, we're a little bit different. Like, we go back and we see these accounts every week or every other week. So if we make these kinds of tweaks, if we add in something like a pickle vodka that is making 60 or 70 bucks a case GP per CE, or the Fireball malt that's making 20 some odd dollars of GP per CE, we add those items in, they're incremental and they pay themselves back like recurring revenue. The more that you can a recurring profit, the more that you can build out those options and build out the infrastructure of the portfolio around kind of plus one mentality. Yeah, I'm going to take care of the core of my portfolio and I'm going to find these plus one, plus two opportunities. Then you can really kind of generate some real value. And we looked at this from a case study standpoint at our office years ago. So I was going to take the crew through this. So one of the high level examples here was we were looking at, and we'll post this in the show notes so you can go find the actual real data too. But one of and for those of us watching on the YouTube, let's share the screen. Let's try sharing the screen here, Mikey. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
See how this goes. So right here, we can see this is one actual account that prior to moving in this kind of philosophy, we had 8 what would be called high GP packages or above in this individual store. And this was a kind of more of a gassy convenience store in a small rural town in Michigan. So they did a little bit of convenience and a little bit of gas. Wasn't like your hardcore convenience store that was gas only in a big city. So it was more of a shopping center in the community. So 8 high GP packages, doing about $1,100 in the prior 6 months, about 4,000 CEs for total GP of $15,000, and GP per CE was $3.57. Now, context for this, that's a really low GP per CE. A, Michigan has incredibly cheap beer. That's well documented. And B, also, this is some historical information. So this is a few years outdated from what is happening. But although the data may be behind, it is a good, solid case study and a good data set to kind of work with. Now, these were the high GP items. So we get some ultra packages in here. Obviously, those are the top 4 or 5, a little New Belgium 4-6, and some Rita stuff. Remember when Rita sold like at some decent velocity? And this is still pretty on the backside of Rita selling as well. Now, fast forward 6 months after launching this new method around focusing on profit and having reps kind of digest what the profitability was, we had 24 high GP packages driving about $1,600. And you can see the GP has jumped up and the volume has jumped up. And we've got GP per CE of running about $3.78. Now, what's fun for me is that if you look at the top 5 packages, Bud Light, Bush, Bud Light, Bud, basically all cans in large pack 30 packs down to single serves and 15s. They're basically the same, right, Mikey? Like we have a little bit of churn here, but they're all basically the same from the first 6 months to the last 6 months. But when we break this down, we expand out to all these different incremental plus one opportunities. And you've got the one that stands out to me is you've got this fresh squeeze 19.2. So you got a craft 19.2 can where clearly this hit Ford in this market doing 19 cases. Pretty fitting that 19.2 cans doing 19.2 cans, 19.2 CEs, and $171 in gross. Like that's pretty fitting and an incredible story because it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And was just an added. Then you see the Voodoo 19.2s doing 5 cases. So you can kind of see this rep expanding and collaborating on these kind of craft opportunities. So we went from selling basically only one craft item, being New Belgium 4-6 bottles, doing 11 cases and $56 in profit, to selling 20, let's say 19, and that's 8. What is that, Mikey? 26, another 31. There's 31, 29, 35. Like basically selling 11 cases of craft to like selling 35 plus cases of craft, all off of these little profitability tweaks.
Yeah,
Isn't
and
it fascinating?
its core consumer there, still keeping those core top 5 packages the same.
Yeah.
You know, really shifting them. He's keeping that the same, and he's adding on to that with these incremental SKUs.
So it's just that plus one mentality, like how do we get that GP per CE to grow? And how do we find that incrementality by mix and by product availability? And at the end of it, when you look at the summary here, it's 16 total net new packages. We didn't run a single pod target, didn't pay for a single placement, didn't pay 10 bucks or 20 bucks or 5 bucks for a single pod, drove $500 in new GP from those 16 new packages, and that added 21 cents in GP per CE to this individual account. So that made the profitability per drop, made the effort to service the account go way up, and the cost per case go way down, and it was a net good exchange. And this is right here, like where we're actually getting into the mix. We could focus on Natty Daddy 25-ounce cans exclusively from a volume perspective and do 65 cases and do 135 bucks, or we could spend some time fussing around with the mix and sell 19.2 cases of fresh squeeze 19.2 cans and generate 40 more dollars in profit.
Yeah, $171 from those 19 cases.
It's an incredible example of like, how do we get to 100 bucks in profitability? We see it time and time again. Mikey, do you have any other examples that you see here as well?
Well, I mean, just by looking at that, right? It clearly shows the rep was thinking outside of the box, being creative within the account, and trying something new to where, I mean, you hear it over and over and over again. Well, this is a value account. That's all I can sell here. I sell Natty and Bush and 30s, and that's it. I don't have a high end shopper here. Well, have we tried, right? And did we try with an 11 or $12 six pack of craft, or did we splash in some 19.2s, bring that total dollar range down, and give somebody an opportunity to just grab one without dumping 12, 13 bucks on a six pack? And clearly you can see it there. I mean, not even with just the fresh squeeze, but what do you have? 4 or 5 different craft 19.2s, to where if you went back a year and you said, hey, let's put 5 new craft 19.2s in this store, the rep probably would have said you're crazy, but by
Yeah.
going out and trying one and it worked, and trying another one and it worked, and then now you get the results like that.
And it's all organic too. Like it's organic in the nature of the sales rep took this on their own volition to add this into the accounts, make sure that it was priced right, merchandised right, put in the right part of the door. We built a lot of resistance in making sure the rep was doing what was right for the shopper in that store in a strategical way. And I say the word resistance because I want the group to start to think about, like, if you're paid for a pod exclusively, there is a resistance there where it's like, just put it in the store, just get it anywhere in the store and get your 10 bucks.
You got to see that
So,
time and time again.
so there's a lack of resistance around seeing the product move from the sales rep's perspective, because the highest value that that pod is going to actually generate for me is actually at the point of initial placement, where the method to the madness that this rep took on was that the highest value is actually derived in month 3 or month 4, when it is paying for itself and there is velocity off the shelf and it's moving. So having the rep take the extra time by layering in that higher resistance level, this individual is taking more time to say, hey, I know my top package in the store is 30 packs of Bush Light, and then it's 25-ounce cans of Bud Light, and then it's another Bush 30 pack, and then a Bud Light 15-pack can, and then another 25-ounce can, a Budweiser 25-ounce can. Like, I know that. Like, that is going to be par for the course for me. And I'm not going to not focus on those things. Like, I'm going to make sure that those items are managed and that they're maintained and that I keep that level of service and that level of stock on those items. That's kind of my bread and butter, what pays me to be there and what pays the bill. And it's a yes and question. And I'm going to focus on these incremental opportunities around 19.2s and around Ultra in this example, and some of these other items that I could add into the store that if I take the care to place them in the right spot, move them around in the cooler, get the cooler stickers up, get the pricing right, maybe even do, in certain scenarios, do displays or small side stacks of items. That is going to pay dividends for me, not just in month one, but month two and month three. And when I start to see the rebuy rate grow, that's where I really start to make my money because I've carefully crafted those plus one items into maintenance mode. And once they're in maintenance mode, like that's the magic, right?
Yeah. So what I hear you say is that he's incentivized to not just get these packages in the account, but he's incentivized to make sure that they're moving, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Not really getting the reward until those start to actually move through the account. So he's doing everything, or she, in this particular event, the rep was a he, so I can say that. But yeah, I mean, he had all the incentive in the world to get it to move, not just to get it in there to check a box. Like, all right, well, it's in the account. I collected my $10. I had my placement. I washed my hands of it.
And we are lazy people. Like we're salespeople. We're designed to be lazy. We can do it as efficiently as possible. We will. I know that about us. I am one of you. So I get to say that and pick on us. The opportunity here is in organizing how we think about our business differently through a profitability, building resistance in the right way so that our field sales reps and our sales professionals know that, hey, this is what it's going to take to be successful. And this is how I actually move the needle for the business and premiumize the book, premiumize the opportunity, and actually grow profits for myself, income for myself too, by the way, and for the business to make the business more sustainable as well. And we've seen this time and time again. So, Mikey, you were talking about a couple of questions as we were getting ready here around just the classical way that incentives work and some other like compare and contrast to how this method of the madness around how do you get to $100 in GP and be more nuanced and creative about it.
Yeah. I'll start with a question. What do you call brand new hot, hard cider package that's stuck down on the bottom shelf of the craft section?
I don't know, Mikey, what do you call
An incentive.
it?
Basically, I mean, if we're paying people for a placement, that's all we're gonna get. If we're paying our reps $10 to just get the product in, there's no incentive to actually get the product in the right place, priced right, looking good on the shelf, trying to call itself out when you're in there shopping. And I see it time and time again. We saw it in our market all the time. I still continue to see it when I'm on the road, but Bell's here in town, here in Michigan, was pretty, a good supplier, and they had a limited release that would come out once a year. And you can tell that there was an incentive on it. You can tell there was a 5 case incentive because you would walk into the cooler and all 5 cases were stacked up in the cooler. Not a single box open, not a single 6 pack made it to the shelf. But ultimately, the rep hit his incentive, and got paid, and really put no thought, no effort into making sure that that product sold through. 5 cases of that product is quite a bit, and you need to really make sure that you're going to sell it through. And in the end game, the only person that lost was the distributor. Supplier was happy; they saw the numbers on distribution. The rep got paid; he was happy, and the distributor lost because come 110 days, the product is being picked up.
Yeah.
And you see it time and time again, and it's it's sad.
Yeah, we took the approach, Mikey, of we want to let the products find its high water distribution or pod goal kind of organically over time. And we self-selected out of pod targets just because it made more sense to us in the philosophy of let's let it grow incrementally. A pod that sells 19 cases of craft 19.2 a single that's a very productive pod is more valuable than 100 that sell a half a case on average over a year or over a month, because you're going to have some FPL cost around that too. So, moving in that direction, it also does something very culturally to the business around the sales reps, where when you launch a new brand, if you're launching it hitting a high water pod mark or target on a regular basis, and that those pods aren't sticking, we're constantly peeling new brands off of accounts. It's almost like a doom loop. Like, oh, I gotta go place all these products, but I get paid to do it. And let me go throw it all around. And I know it's only going to work in these 25 or 40. Like, we know where these stores are going to work, right? Like, we know these markets really well as the beer distributors. Like, we get it. It's go to work in these 40 stores or in these 60 stores or these 80 stores where we have a pod target we throw out of 100 pods or of 200 pods to our reps, and they inevitably go get it. And then we have this high water mark. And then over the next 6 months, we peel it back to the 40 or the 60 accounts that it genuinely works. And it just looks like a doom loop for a rep over and over again. And we're kidding ourselves if the retailers don't see this too.
Absolutely.
So, would it be smarter for us to just let it organically find its way? And I always felt like the cultural side of the business became more of an excitement around brand launches because the team knew the market, they knew what they could do with it, and we weren't pressuring them to outkick their coverage. And we would let them kind of organically say, hey, okay, here's the profitability, here's kind of the brand story. If we had the supplier in, they would share the knowledge that they have about the product and the brand and where it works. And then we just let the reps do their thing.
Yeah,
They organically found that high watermark. That was then momentum to the upside. Like, look what we did. We found, 40 placements that this will work really well, or 80 placements that this will work really well. And that growth mindset or growth philosophy is incredibly empowering. Where if you look at the other side, it's like, I sold 200 and now I only have 80.
absolutely. Yeah. And we
We
saw
get
time and time
lazy.
again too, reps digging into the arsenal, digging into the portfolio, right? What if this stuck and this worked? What else can I find? What else
Mhm.
can I use? Time and time again, we saw people asking for new 19.2s because it was working. What other craft 19.2s can we get our hands on? What are we missing out there? Reps were asking for this, which was great. Flavors, different flavors of beatbox. Hey, what else is there? Club tails. What else can we get? This one, this flavor doesn't seem to be working anymore. Let's replace it with this one. Or, hey, I'm doing really good across the board. Let's look into some different flavors and bring it in. So to have that kind of engagement from a rep, and looking total portfolio, looking through and seeing what else I can use, what else I can see to get to stick. If I did the 19.2 thing and it worked, what else can I use?
So how do you think velocity plays into this too? We're spending a lot of time talking about, what can I do for $100 in GP? I like to think about that solely from the profitability perspective, just because it helps ingrain the rep in the new data that we're showing them. That a case of this is worth, a case of Keystone or a case of Ultra and a case of Bud Light and Miller Light is worth, $4 to $5, $6. And then a case of Heineken and Stella is worth 8. And then a case of, high end craft is 10 or 11. Then you keep going up to liquor and wine, which could be worth anywhere between 20 to $80. So I like talking about it just in that of just rationalizing. I could sell 2 cases of vodka, of 2 cases or 9 bottles or 12 bottles of vodka and make $100. So I could sell 40 cases of beer in some places or 20 cases of beer in some places, just to create that huge disparity in their mind and get them going. But where does velocity start to come into play with this as well?
They need the velocity, right, in order to make it work. I guess I don't understand your question as far as how does it come into play.
Reps thinking around, we talk about how they collaborate together. You know, you can't just sell profit for profit's sake, and you can't just
Yeah.
sell velocity for volume for volume's sake, that they actually collaborate together.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to have the volume. If you're just going through your portfolio and you're picking things that based on GP per CE or based on just gross revenue and not putting the thought into, is it going to work? Am I going to get the turn on it? Shove it in the account and it didn't work, picking it up, put it in there again, right? We have to find that happy medium of the velocity and the profit. We need to have the turns on it in order to make it profitable. Obviously the FPL is going to outweigh the profits when we're picking stuff up. So yeah, using the mindset of, all right, this is working here. I have the velocity on this. I'm going to play off of that and I'm going to add this to the mix and see what happens.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point around how they work together and that you're trying to find the two together. I like to talk about it with reps as trying experiments, to go back to that example of the car dealer. You know, hey, the car dealer, if I don't sell the car today, the likelihood of me selling the car basically goes to zero or is very, very low. But for us, like we said, we're going to be back here next week. So if I try to do something, so if I place a case of a 19.2, there's probably just one case to see how it goes. I get it in the right spot, and if it doesn't move, I haven't really shot myself in the foot that bad. Like, we're just selling beer here. We're not selling nuclear waste. Like, we can reconfigure, put something else there, move it around, expand something that is working. We can try little experiments to play around with what we want to get done without having to really risk a whole lot of either effort or a whole lot of cost on the wholesaler side, to just kind of dabble in these things strategically. We're talking about plus one things. And if we try one or two experiments every single week in different accounts, and we do that for 6 months straight, the next thing you know, you've got 24, probably somewhere between 24 and 35 to 40 experiments that you're running, and half of them are really working. And once you find those half, now you can look through and say, now I can apply that strategy in those experiments at scale. Only if I'm servicing 40 or 80 accounts, depending on every rep, if I probably have 20 other accounts that work just like that account that experiment is trying. I can say, boom, this worked here, it worked here, it worked here. I feel confident in this. I can do it in these three more. I can do it in these three more. I can do it in these three. And we can apply all this at scale really quickly.
Yeah. And giving the rep the freedom to make those choices on an individual account basis, other than just, hey, I need this product at every single account, forcing a rep to make a placement in an account that he just knows not going to work. It doesn't pay off. And when we put the freedom in the reps hands to make those decisions and the data behind it to help make those decisions, you see it go a lot further, because that was their idea. Now it is their baby and they want to see it succeed. To where when we force products in an account, again, we're coming back to, we're paying them just to get the placement, and then that's it. Not a whole lot of ownership behind it. So yeah, by putting the ownership on the rep, allowing them to make that decision, really just, they want to see it succeed.
Were you scared of the freedom when we decided to allocate all this freedom to the reps?
I mean, at first it was where is this going to go? And you have your thoughts in the beginning of who's going to succeed at this and who's going to fail at this. And I was pleasantly surprised of the results, and I was wrong in a lot of ways of who wasn't going to succeed. So that was good. I mean, to watch it unfold was great. But yeah, I mean, in the beginning, yeah, maybe a little bit scary, but not in the end. You watch reps just make decisions that you didn't even really think of. You
Yeah.
couldn't, from a upper management position, we couldn't say, "Hey, this SKU is going to work great in this account." We don't know. We're not in the account every day. They're in there every week, sometimes multiple times a week. Maybe they shop there. So they know the account better than any of us.
So here's a really important question that and you're really uniquely armed to answer in your team lead hat where you were a team lead and you were trying to help teach and coach and educate a new rep to understand this newfound freedom because it is newfound freedom at the end of the day or autonomy. I like to call it autonomy. I even like freedom a little bit better. But when you allocate this newfound freedom to a rep, you're kind of the front line educator, you know, as in the ownership hat or suite that I would sit in. You guys aren't scared. They're scared to come talk to me or ask me questions. They just are. Like it just is what it is. They're never. And Tommy was so great about explaining that to me. Like there's nothing you can do to make them come ask you things. You can be comfortable with them, but they're still going to want to ask me or Mikey things that they just don't feel comfortable asking you. So, what do you think the most important thing in your world? Kind of speak to that team leader, that ASM that's maybe listening to this and trying to understand what do I do or what can I do alone to start to educate my reps around this newfound freedom.
Coaching, first of all, and then it also loops back to last week's episode, collaboration in sales meetings, right? Sharing success stories, having reps hear what their peers are doing and what's working. If you have one rep sitting back and not really making those decisions, not really looking to take chances or try new things, and somebody else is, they are going to feel left behind. But also, I mean, as management team leaders, when we walk into an account, we see the account completely different than the rep does. You know, the rep becomes complacent when you walk in week after week. We could walk in and see 4 or 5 different pieces of POS that are not relevant anymore. Maybe old graphics, and so the rep, they just don't see that. So coming back to coaching, right? We're obviously going to see opportunities that they don't, but as we start pointing them out, maybe coaching them up on, hey, you're doing really well with this particular brand. How about we expand on that? Or hey, have you ever thought about, this is a convenience store. People are coming in and they're grabbing and they're going. Have you ever thought about the malt fireball in this account? Or hey, you have the malt fireball in this account, but it's placed here. Have we ever thought about putting it over here? And a couple coaching sessions can go a long way, but I think what goes even further is the collaboration between the reps.
What you're getting at is like using stories to sell and getting back, you know, as for much data that we work in every day, we try really hard to flip our stories or data driven knowledge into actual stories around because that's how we as people like to learn, and it's more powerful to learn through a story anecdotally or a joke or fairy tale. In some ways that's why we tell our children fairy tales and learn that way because that's how we learn. So you know, done with the eye charts, right, Mikey? As much as
Yeah.
data, you know, that
Yeah.
needs to be the story. We have to actually connect the dots for the reps and understand and get them to understand our sales professionals how to actually say, "Ooh, that makes sense." Or, I haven't thought about that. What
Yeah.
do you think about this? And like when you're collaborating together, because you did a good question that you asked, you know, have you thought about this or have you tried this? Or you're now asking questions in a way that you're bouncing back and forth. You're not dictating or directing. We're actually getting the rep to come out of their shell and they're in a zone of learning and a zone of collaboration with you as a team lead. And now you can actually get them to engage around, ooh, I'm starting to understand and connect dots and see what the future could look like or see what I need to do next.
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate goal is to get away from telling our reps every single thing to do and give them the freedom to come up with it on their own and make those choices. Last thing we want to do is have our reps be string puppets and say, "Hey, do this and do this and do this and do this that," and then they come to us and say, "Hey, what do you think about this? Can I do this?" No, I mean, what do you think about it? It's your account. Do you think it's going to work? Do you think it's the right decision? Do you think you can do anything else with it? So really shifting that back over to them and having them take the ownership, and not come to you for every single question or what do you think I should do in this account? With new freedom comes confusion. And in the beginning, I mean, if you just hand over the keys and say, "Hey, this is your account, you make all these decisions," there's going to be a lot of confusion in the beginning. So, a lot of hands-on coaching in the beginning, success stories, sharing stories.
Those are all great ideas. I love it. Well, I think that does it for this week's episode. Mikey, anything else you want to add?
No, I'm going to get on these gnats. I'm going to take care of this today.
Oh
I'm going
boy.
to put that plant right in the garbage. It's out of here.
Does Miss Jamie have her own office that you could park the money plant in, the Gnat plant in?
I might put it in her car. Take it to her classroom. That's what I'll do is I'll take it to her classroom. If she wants the money plant, she can have it there.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, if you have any ideas in the audience for how to deal with gnats in a money plant, let us know, and we will, or let us know, and Mikey will put that into action. So,
Yeah.
Mikey, you have a good weekend. Cheers, my man. Thanks, everybody.